Blizzard in this statement alone is just like, yeah, but we're different now. As if in the past 2 years, they've completely restructured the company with all the same people. When you have no risk at all in your career, chances are you're more prone to do stupid shit. It's such a fucking weak response. Like they have these like fucking baseless appeals to emotion. Like, what does the victim's parents feel about you dragging her name up in this investigation? I don't know. How do you think they feel about your employees, your upper management, sexually harassing her? I really don't want to make my channel about this. I'm not really someone who wants to focus on drama, but I do feel like there's a lot to go over. There's been a lot of developments, a lot of new opinions, and also just my previous video kind of did more numbers than I expected. More people watched it, and I think a lot of people came away with the completely wrong opinions. I think that's just a result of me posting it on the WoW subreddit, which, if you guys have ever posted a video on that subreddit, there are some unique individuals on that subreddit who watch like 5 seconds and say some pretty surprising shit. But regardless, I still want to talk about it. I want to talk about specifically Blizzard and their hypocrisy, right? Something that has been just discussed more now than ever before has been Blizzard's hypocrisy. And I think it's being discussed now in a way that is a bit more productive than what it used to be. And I want to touch on this in a few specific ways, right? Because the thing that prompted me to discuss this is reading Blizzard's statement on the recent lawsuit that has hit them by the state of California. If you guys are not familiar with this lawsuit, a quick summary would be the state of California suing Blizzard for civil rights related breaches, essentially, where Blizzard has a pretty toxic fraternity culture within their working environments that involve sexually harassing women, just general discrimination towards women, and unfortunately that has led to the suicide of one of the workers there, especially after their unbelievably horrendous and just baffling actions surrounding this woman and various other workers, including passing around nudes at a office party, a holiday party, to just bringing in inappropriate sexual shit into the office and into parties, things like butt plugs. When you get to a point where you're bringing a butt plug to your office, I feel like I feel like you've lost the plot. You've lost the plot, right? You've lost the plot. These tech companies in Cali have really, I've just never seen environments like this before. I've worked in a few offices in my time, and I've just never seen environments that are even remotely like this. It's just horrendous and sickening to see this. And I feel like my general feelings on the matter are that, I mean, fuck Blizzard, right? Fuck Blizzard. And I don't really like saying something so broad in scope, because I'm very well aware that not everyone in the corporations like this. Not everyone in the office is like this. I live really close by to the Blizzard HQ, and I doubt all 1,000 people working in there are like sexual predators. I really doubt that. I'm sure there's tons of amazing artists there, tons of amazing developers there, engineers there that don't have anything to do with this. And I don't want to sit here and tell them to fuck themselves. I don't believe that. But man, this is horrible. I mean, you thought Blizzard's reputation couldn't get worse after Blitzchung, right? After the China situation, and now you get this. And what I recently saw is just how many people are bringing up Blizzard's recent movements for more inclusivity. Something that Preach mentioned, for example, is the fact that in the previous BlizzCon, there has been a huge push for inclusivity, and it just so happens to line up with this lawsuit, right? And it's not like Blizzard was unaware of this lawsuit, which is, again, a total lie. They told in their response, which we'll be going over. They were most definitely aware of this lawsuit. They were complying with the state of California to aid them in this. Also, you have certain events, such as the more inclusivity-driven BlizzCon events, that tells us that, yeah, they were trying to, like, at least look good. I don't know if they were legitimately trying to, act in a way that is, not toxic, but generally speaking, we can never know, right? That's just the way the world works, right? We never know what someone's true intentions are, let alone a corporation's true intentions. So in the reality, we can always assume that it's for making money, it's for PR, etc., but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, right? If someone donates $1 million to charity for cancer research, and they're just doing that to look good in the eyes of Twitter, who cares? That's $1 million donated to cancer research. At the end of the day, the positives, which is to say the $1 million donated to cancer research, outweigh the negatives, which is maybe a disingenuous like move by the higher ups for PR. Who cares? Who cares? The bottom line is that we want more good in the world, not more bad. I don't care what they may think in their heart of hearts, as long as they're not, hurting people. In this case, we don't know, and as I said in my previous video, it takes a long time for us to really figure out whether things have improved. This lawsuit has been going on for 2 years now, but it is compiling research from 15 years. I mean, just for over a decade of research has already been compiled into this document, with testimonies and stories and recountings being told that span all the way back to 2007. So this is not just a 2-year thing. So the changes being made by Blizzard in these past 2 years, they obviously strike people as somewhat disingenuous. Ultimately, we don't know, though, and I want to make that clear. I don't care if something is disingenuous. I care if it works. And sometimes disingenuous bullshit works, a la the cancer donation example, right? I don't care if it was disingenuous. That's still a lot of money for cancer research. So that's why I'm not going to really address that. I'm not going to predict or postulate on or guess whether or not Blizzard somehow is, like maniacally PR driven, whatever. Of course they are. What I will talk about, though, is the recent influx of criticisms aimed at Blizzard, specifically about their statements on inclusivity, statements on diversity, statements on just the general kind of like corporate PR speak. We're here to help all of our workers. We love them all. We love them all. Whilst, housing abusers, housing sexual harassers, and in extreme cases, housing actual, rapists and stuff like that, right? As we already determined, you have like someone like Alex Efrasabi, who was accused multiple times by multiple different people for acting like a total scumbag, and then he was quietly shuffled out through a back door of the company, most likely with a pretty hefty severance package, and he still has his NPCs in the game. He still, it's 5 days ago, if someone were to say, "Oh, remember Afriasabi? Remember that was the previous creative director for WoW. Remember him? What do you think of him?" And most people would be like, "Oh yeah, he was kind of cool. Yeah, I'm sure he did some cool stuff. He was during the golden age of WoW, so how could he be bad? He was there during the 2004, 2005 development of World of Warcraft, back when the game was good. How could he possibly have done anything bad? That's when Blizzard was good. That's before Activision. How could have Blizzard been bad?" It could very well be the case that Blizzard is a better place to work now than it was in 2008. That could very well be the case. But right now it doesn't matter, because they have let this shit fester for far too long, and the shit has hit the fan in more ways than one. You have people like Asmongold. Obviously they've been railing the game systems for multiple years now, right? Since the launch of BFA, essentially, I think this attitude has pervaded a lot of the community. But now it extends far beyond that. Far beyond that. Blizzard is losing to an extreme. So when I see this PR statement they recently released, a response to the lawsuit and just kind of giving their side of the story, I have to question everything about my love for the game, everything about my attachment to whatever image of Blizzard I ever had, and just wonder what the fuck is going on. in this PR statement, the first thing we see is Blizzard's valuing of diversity and a inclusive workplace. You know, every voice matters, their slogan, right? Recapitulating that, of course, right? I don't know how many tech bro corps at this point have that slogan, maybe reworded slightly, but there you go. They value inclusivity. They value diversity. And I saw a post on the World of Warcraft subreddit recently that was essentially just like images of Blizzard's kind of like diverse characters and then like the lawsuit. And I mean, I completely disagree with that post, right? You kind of see, I don't know, like more diverse character customizations, which I feel like everyone loved, except maybe some like random like neckbeard on YouTube. That's not a self-report, by the way. That's not a self-report. Except maybe some like random neckbeard on YouTube making like clickbait content about how going woke, go woke, go broke, or whatever, you know, stupid reactionary bullshit you see on YouTube now. Beyond those people, I feel like everybody loved it, right? Like everybody loved having a ton more character customization in World of Warcraft. Like the humans, for example, could actually look like, you know, not just like the usual, I don't know, Eastern European or just white guy or white girl. Now, in some cases, just kind of shaded darker. Now you actually get more, you know, diverse character models, right? Different face types, different hair types, all this awesome stuff. Things that I feel made the game better. All these awesome character customizations. There were pictures of like, I don't know, like Zarya from Overwatch, or I think most of Overwatch's roster is really, really diverse and great. So you have all of these pictures, and then it's like, oh, well, look at all this harassment. And well, first of all, I disagree with this post, mainly because I feel like just like character designers and like artists for Blizzard most likely aren't the ones, you know, fostering this work environment. From everything I've read, the work environment here is mostly fostered by the higher ups, right? This fraternity, frat bro-esque environment is mostly done by those who know they can get away with it, right? If it's your first day on a job, you're not bringing in a flask tucked away in your suit pocket, right? You're not bringing in a fucking strip of coke, you know, that you can take, that you can snort in the bathroom on your first day. Probably not happening. But when you get promoted 10 years later, when you know this is a cushy job, you know every manager, you know every higher up, you're bringing in the liquor, you're bringing in the coke, you know, all this stuff expected. I don't think like some college kid who was given the task of like designing some, or actually college, post college, just out of college kid that they hired to like do some like, I don't know, character customization for World of Warcraft or some character design. I don't think those are the people that we should be pointing out for Blizzard's hypocrisy with. I really don't think that's the case, because I am betting right now that out of the however many hundreds of people working in Blizzard, those aren't the people who are, you know, sexually harassing women. Chances are those are where, you know, a lot of the women, a lot of the lower rung employees work, right? Generally in the lower management portions, you know, just like base jobs, engineers, designers, stuff like that. Those are the people that are being harassed. Like, let's just make it clear. And this is how it's always been, right? Like, it's very rare, and it has happened, but it's very rare that like a shareholder or like someone who has a really, really high standing position in a company is the brunt of the harassment, like takes the brunt of the harassment, is a victim, because they have, like, especially from people underneath them, right? Like a woman that is like I don't know, a CFO or some shit of a company, probably is not being harassed by like a coder or an engineer, right? Like that's just probably not happening. If you had to guess, because that's their job on the line. But switch those two roles, right? You're up high, you're in a cushy job, you know you're not going to get fired. That's ample opportunity to live out your most pathetic, disgusting fantasies, right? Like that's your opportunity to say the shit that you know you should not be saying to people that are probably going to fucking feel horrible hearing you say it to them, right? And as I covered in my previous video, there is nothing you can do and this is the implicit understanding when you're working at a company like this, at a huge company like this, there is nothing you can do. Nothing. Because a lot of these tech companies, if you've ever worked within them or with them or near them, you know that their environment, especially in the past 5 years, has like had this inclusivity driven kind of ambiance, right? Like you get that like glasses wearing, oh my God, I'm like self-reporting like a motherfucker today. You get this like glasses wearing white guy with a flannel shirt on, and he's like waddling through the office, and he's like greeting every woman in the office, and he's like, yeah, if you have any issues, just let me know. And that's oftentimes the same dude that does some really fucking stupid shit on an office party when he gets drunk. You know what I mean? It's the same dude. And that's the problem, right? You can do that surface level shit. You can do that, oh, we're being inclusive because look at all these inclusivity policies. Look at all these inclusivity training seminars we go to. Look at all of this. But that doesn't fucking matter when the people that are breaching this trust are the people that aren't going to those. First of all, they're too high up on the ladder. Or two, they're people that are the ones that are kind of puppeteering all of this, right? And it's maybe not as malicious or as well thought out as that. It's mostly just a product of the environment. When you have no risk at all in your career, chances are you're more prone to do stupid shit. And that, for regular, not fucked up people, that usually means like not putting in a lot of effort, right? Oh, I've been working here for 20 years. I'm not going to get fired. So I'm, not going to work this hard. I'm going to browse YouTube. I'm going to, send a couple emails out and just chill for the rest of the day. That happens all the time. And at the end of the day, who fucking cares if that's the case? Who cares? What's more important are the people that can manipulate those positions, right? And there's no two ways about it, right? And the problem here is that this environment is full of people that know one another, that have worked with one another and have become friends with one another. And if you've ever been in an environment where you know one of your friends is doing fucking just despicable shit, and I have been in those environments, it is incredibly hard, no matter how moral you think you are, it is incredibly hard to be the first one to speak out about it. And don't get it twisted. You need to be speaking out about it. If you are witnessing your friend do some despicable stuff, you need to be speaking up about it, right? You can't just wait for someone else to do it. But I can sit here in an ivory gamer chair and explain to you what you should be doing in those situations when I know how difficult that is. I know that is not easy to do. And that's exactly what was happening at Blizzard. It's so fucking clear, right? If you look at the infrastructure within Blizzard, this company has been around for 2 decades, and it's mainly had the same people running that company. And it's been alternating through CEOs, it's been alternating through upper management positions between the people that have been working there for 20 years, right? You don't really get new blood up in those positions, not for a long time. And that's just how companies operate, right? Hey, this group of friends started this company. It's a beloved company. Blizzard's beloved, like it or not. And now 20 years later, when one guy retires, another guy takes his place. Every Chris Metzen that leaves, a J. Allen Brack comes in. And what's so fucking frustrating about this is that that's the environment that fosters this kind of lack of accountability. You get a place where one of your friends does some fucked up shit, especially in a work environment, by the way. This is tantamount to understand. It's a work environment. So the threshold for fucked up shit is way lower than it would be if you're just kicking back a few beers at a bar or at your apartment, right? If you're at your apartment, you can make a few uncouth jokes and not get, screwed because of that. But at a work environment, even at an office party, you don't want to be walking around making the kinds of jokes that have been reported in this document. You don't want to do that. And you should be penalized for that. Because damn well that if some low-strung, year-in, or low positioned year-in artist at Blizzard was the one making these jokes, if he was walking around making rape jokes, like, what is this, 2007? It's like a Call of Duty lobby from 2007. Like, what the fuck? But regardless, he's walking around making these rape. Chances are he's gonna get canned. He's gonna get canned. And you know the funny thing is, he's probably gonna be canned by the same people who were passing around nudes of like a harassed employee. What's really important to understand about this whole situation is that because of how tight-knit the upper management of Blizzard is, that is why there is a lack of accountability. It is due to that. And that has been shown within this lawsuit, right? If you read through it, you would know that, for example, Alex Afriazabi was talked to by J. Allen Brack. You guys know J. Allen Brack, right? Multiple conversations, according to this lawsuit, allegedly, they had with one another. With Brack being like, dude, stop being a piece of shit. And what happened? Nothing. They let him go quietly, no fuss, no change. And a really important element here, and the parallel I'm drawing here, is to something like Method, right? The Method Corporation that was harboring Method Josh, who, as you guys are aware, you know, pedophile, piece of shit, fucked in the head, etc., etc. They were harboring him, right? They were. And there were people in that management that are aware of accusations levied at Method Josh. They were aware of it, and they didn't do anything about it. And if you saw the emails that were posted by the victims of this piece of shit, you saw that the upper management or the PR team was like, dude, yeah, go take it to the cops. Fuck you. Right? They didn't really give a shit because he was a huge streamer. He was huge. He was getting thousands of viewers. He was the most popular member of Method. He was just like the incel lord, right? And he got this huge audience for them. He was making money from them. They had no reason to kick him. They had no reason to can him. And in this case, and he was probably friends with a lot of people. And as we saw from some of their, clipped VODs, it seems like a lot of people knew that what he was up to wasn't particularly great. Honestly. That's just how it is. And the same probably applies to Blizzard, right? They probably know that a lot of their upper management, not great. A lot of their upper management, bit fucked up. Got maybe a bit too comfortable in the office. A little bit, right? And what does that manifest as? Obviously this. This is what it manifests as. Making inappropriate comments, being a sexual harasser, pushing people to suicide, right? I was really soft in my first video on this. I was sitting here like, yeah, maybe take some accountability for our potential suicide. Take accountability for this shit. You need to be very proactive about this. Something I made videos about are the management issues at Blizzard. I made videos about some of the issues at Blizzard that manifest within the game systems. But now it's more serious. It's manifesting in the actual office spaces, right? And your goal is not to wait to be called out. That should be every company's goal, to not have to wait to be called out, to make that first move. I'm just talking purely like heartless businessman here, right? You need to be the one to make the first move. If you are proactive in removing this, nothing bad will happen to you. If years ago, when Afrisabi was leaving, Blizzard made a statement being like, yeah, we just fucking canned this piece of shit. How much you want to bet that people are like, fucking good shit, Blizzard, good shit. You're calling out all these pieces of shit. You're getting them out. Company's looking good. Have fun in BFA. This could have been, like, these are things that can be solved, but they're not because there's no reason to solve them, right? It's either complacency at the end of at the behest of the upper management. It's either a fear from the PR team. It's either pressure from the shareholders, the stock, whatever. They don't want to lose people. They don't want to potentially have to hire new people to hold in positions that are very, no doubt, difficult. But to me, this is very simple, quite frankly. To me, this just seems like a group of friends that, they can pull each other's side, be like, dude, relax. Okay, yeah, relax, right? Relax. But if you've ever talked to your friend who's a bit of a goofball, and when I say goofball, I mean kind of like like a idiot piece of shit, like you pull him aside and you're like, hey, relax a little bit. Is he ever going to relax? Maybe at that event he will. Maybe at that event he'll be like, oh, okay, I'm a bit of a buzzkill, but what can you do? But next event, it's the same shit. And that's the problem, right? Clearly their action was not good enough. And that's where we enter the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy isn't Blizzard makes diverse character customization and then harasses women. That's not hypocrisy. That's such a weird dichotomy, right? That's such a weird thing to say, in my opinion, right? Because, okay, if they didn't ever release a diverse character customization for the human models in WoW, I doubt that would have not made Blizzard a hypocrite. What's hypocritical here is the fact that their slogans, right, are antithetical to the approach of the upper management. The upper management is attacking the state of California, rather than just kind of taking the brunt of it, taking it in the cheek and moving on, beginning the process of restructuring, something that is undoubtedly a better PR move. It is undoubtedly a better PR move to just be like, hey guys, okay, yeah, we done fucked it. Things have been getting better, but we fucked it. We're going to do a company-wide, like upper management restructuring with more incentives to not be a piece of trash. Would it be perfect? By no means would it be perfect. But would it have been better than this? Where they were saying that the DFEH, the people were, forming this lawsuit, included false cases, false information, and were solely describing Blizzard's past actions as if that makes it okay. As if it's like, no, we did that 5 years ago. It's fine. We're good now. We're good now. Look, we let go. We let him go. What makes Blizzard hypocritical, right, is the Blitzchung situation, right? Of here's a dude making a political statement at the at winning the award or winning the competition. He makes a political statement, free Hong Kong, and they scrub it clean. Like, they don't just go like, we don't take sides on this. Like, at the end of the day, if Blizzard was just like made a post after they'd be like, yeah, we don't take sides on this, but we respect people's political decisions. It's not okay to make those positions known at the tournaments. Done. If that's all they did, then we wouldn't have been in this position. But through whatever reason, and there are many theories on what happened here, right? There are one theory being like, oh, well, they were pressured from China. Like there was a pressure from the CCP. The commie overlords were over there fucking cracking down the whip at Blizzard and being like, hey guys, yeah, kick this dude in the nuts, take away his shit, and also fire those fucking casters for no reason as well. Fuck those guys. Like, whether that's true or not, I can't tell you. I can say that it could have honestly been just a really brash call from some of the shareholders, not China. It could have been just the shareholders being like, fuck, delete the VOD, cut the video, cut the tape. That could have very well been the case, right? And they did it before they even thinking it through. But like, I think a lot of people seem to think that like companies are just these like well-oiled machines. They think of companies like those old pictures in the 1910s at the Henry Ford car manufacturing factories where, you get this assembly line of like dozens of people like putting in one thing after the other and screwing in a knob, and the next guy screws in the next knob, and it's like this perfect build, and by the time you get to the end of the assembly line, there's just a full functioning car there. No, that's not the way companies work, like, at all, right? If you are privy to, and I don't blame people for not being privy to this, because if you work at a company, you probably don't even like fully see this unless you're up in the upper management positions. Like, the only reason I can say this with confidence is because I have experience just like witnessing some of the back end shit to companies and the way they function and some of their issues and just some of the fucked up things they end up doing due to that. These people are really impulsive sometimes, especially if they have all of their money on the line. And it could have very well been an impulsive decision. But it could have been an impulsive decision they learned from, right? They fucked up with the Blitzchung situation. Now it's time to not make such brash decisions anymore. But now you get a far worse situation, right? You don't just get some like geek calling out, the CCP, right? Obviously pretty based, but like also, okay, it's not mind shattering. It's still gameplay, right? It's like the Diablo Immortals fiasco. Maybe a little bit more than that. It's not the end of the world. But now you got criminal charges being pressed, right? You have civil rights breaches being investigated, and in many cases, not even dismissed by Blizzard themselves. I mean, they're sitting here literally acknowledging that it happened, which great, but Blizzard in this statement alone is just like, yeah, but we're different now. As if in the past 2 years, they've completely restructured the company with all the same people. They let go like one dude, and that's it. Like, they probably let go someone who they knew would have been completely fucking, I don't want to use this word because it's so Twitter and corny, but like immediately canceled the second his shit gets visible to the public eye, right? He's a, what's the word I'm looking for? He is, the odd one out. He is a liability. Right, so let's get rid of him, give him a good severance package, bye, live happily ever after, I'll call you for dinner tomorrow, kind of attitude. But that's not solving anything. It's as if one dude is never responsible for all the shit in the company, right? It's never like that, which goes back to my argument about the assembly line. It's not an assembly line. It's an assembly line where like half the employees are on the assembly line jerking off, company environments, especially in the upper echelons, the upper managements, are these like cesspools of horny motherfuckers, of like these kind of like sleazy people, and they're not all bad. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, every fucking person is bad. I'm not going to say that, but it tends to attract individuals who are questionable, maybe morally bankrupt in some ways, and we kind of don't get an image of that or an image that of Blizzard that goes against what I just said, right? They're suggesting that they were compliant with the state of California, but they are also, and this is a quoting them, we are sickened by the reprehensible conduct of the DFEH to drag into the complaint the tragic suicide of an employee whose passing has no bearing whatsoever on this case and with no regard for a grieving family. So to suggest that her passing has no bearing on this case is total nonsense, right? Because if you were to read the actual sections, and Blizzard has or whoever at Blizzard who's handling the shit has most definitely read it. So obviously they're just lying through their teeth here, because this is just aimed at people who don't read any of the documents that are being cited and mostly just read Twitter headlines. Oh, maybe Blizzard's correct. Maybe this has no bearing. No, it actually has very specific bearing, right? Because this is the person who was getting their nudes traded at the company party, right? This is the person who is being sexually harassed. And I'm sorry, if you're depressed, sexually harassed, and just have your like nudes shared by people you work shoulder to shoulder with in your company, do you really think you're going to be going in the next day feeling great? Do you think that's not going to like emotionally fuck you up? Can you think do you think that's even remotely acceptable in any fucking way? No, of course not. It's reprehensible. And that's, first of all, it's also illegal, right? Obviously, it's illegal. I support, criminal charges pressed on all these people that were engaged in this. It's illegal to trade someone's nudes in this way. But, there's laws against that, especially in California. But yeah, I mean, they were calling the DFEH irresponsible. They were suggesting that, their investigation is in bad faith. Again, all of this stuff, I would understand, right? Any skepticism aimed at like a Twitlonger post. I would understand skepticism aimed at just I worked at Blizzard 4 years ago and I was kind of mistreated. These people are kind of assholes. Do I necessarily agree with the skepticism? You know, like I understand people being like, yeah, that sucks, but also like, you know, this is a federal investigation. This is not an if and or but situation. This is a federal investigation with like copious evidence, with copious testimonies, which, by the way, are admissible evidence in court, which is why, you know, they're placed within these documents. It's not like they're not going to be used in like this. This is about as good as you can get when trying to nail some people on events that occurred in the past, especially in like the further away past. So Blizzard says that the picture that DFEH paints is not the Blizzard workplace of today. Over the past several years and continuing since the initial investigation started, we've made significant changes to address company culture and reflect more diversity within our leadership teams. That is not the problem. That is not the fucking problem at all. I don't care if you have more women in the upper management, in leadership positions. That's not the issue. I mean, it might be an issue, but that's not like, you know, you're not like, oh, you fucking just blew someone's brains out, but don't worry, a woman did it. Like, you know, like that's not the problem. The problem is management not being held accountable, right? The reason, and this is maybe a hot take here, the reason why there are less women responsible for this kind of manipulative bullshit is because there's just less women working in these leadership positions in general, right? Generally, you know, the classic phrase of absolute power corrupts absolutely or whatever, right? Like, when you're in a position of power, you are in a place where you can get away with some shit, and chances are that doesn't matter whether you're a dude or a girl, right? Chances are you can still get away with that shit, and chances are that's going to attract some people who want to get away with some shit, right? Is it as widespread for women? Of course not. It's not as widespread for women. Women aren't in these positions of power as much. The problem, the solution, I would say, that's like 30% of the way there, right? Hire more women, place them, you know, if they're qualified enough, place them in leadership positions. That's all great, right? That's all a nice, inclusive message. Good stuff. That's not the problem, though. Right? Like, if you know what I mean? Like, it's completely dissonant from the fucking problem. And that's what's so frustrating about this whole response to me. That's what really kind of puts me in a place where I'm getting frustrated as fuck reading about it. They're not engaging with any of the reality here. They're just suggesting, oh, well, we're going to hire more, you know, more women. Yeah, maybe don't hire more women if you're just going to keep sexually harassing them. You know, like, goddamn. The problem here is that you need to foster a workplace not of diversity, although that is, I mean, again, pause. Yes, you should foster a workplace of diversity. Diversity generally equals or means that there are more unique voices and stories to be told. This is just proven time and time again. That generally, when you hire more diverse people, they have more unique stories to tell, and you get a wider berth of interesting shit or interesting narrative stories to, you know, tell in whatever game you're making, right? That's generally the reality of the situation, whether it's a game or a movie. If you're just like, I don't know, getting stories from the suburbs, not the best bet. You know, what if you want to tell an inner city story? What if you want to tell a foreign story? What if you want to tell, you know, a story of someone who, I don't know, grew up in a pack of, with a pack of wolves? Like, I don't know, you know, generally speaking, diverse voices, always a positive. But what you need is an environment of accountability. The solution is accountability. And I don't think they've mentioned that a single time. Yeah, not a single time did they even say the word accountability. When everyone's problem here is that they fucked up, continue to fuck up, and they don't take any accountability. And because you know what that means, right? And taking accountability means admitting that you fucked up. And you can just instead admit in some roundabout way, oh, this was us in the past, but this is not us now. Look, we hired more women to sexually harass. Like, it's just... This is the most flaccid fucking response to a lawsuit I've ever seen in my life. This is like one of those YouTube response videos, you know, like Blizzard's like comes in, I've been crying all day. It's such a fucking weak response. Like they have these like fucking baseless appeals to emotion. Like, what does the victim's parents feel about you dragging her name up in this investigation? I don't know. How do you think they feel about your employees, your upper management, sexually harassing her? How do you think they feel about that? Chances are they want to feel vindicated, and they want to feel as though the people responsible have been, taken to task. And when they're not, when you are hiding, when you are purposefully shrouding or protecting the people who need to take responsibility for this, as you did with Alex Afrasiabi, who had a suite at BlizzCon named after Bill Cosby. Like, when you're protecting this dude, right? When you're just kind of like, oh yeah, you can leave now. We won't tell anyone that you're kind of a piece of shit. Like, when you're protecting these people, in what universe is that going to foster any trust between you and the people who want to support you, right? And look at me sitting here. I'm fucking addicted to this game. I love World of Warcraft, right? But I am so torn on this problem, man. I mean, I'm torn in the sense that I'm not torn on whether or not I agree with Blizzard. This is 100% wrong. There's not a single moment, place, or position here by Blizzard that is at all accurate. This is just full hypocrisy. Full. And it's not enough to just call out hypocrisy, right? It's not enough to just say, oh, you're being hypocritical, right? Especially not in the way that I was describing earlier, where it's just like, oh, well, people can be black now, and you also sexually harass. Like, it's nonsense. That shit's really stupid. Don't do that. Don't be like that kind of person, right? Like, don't be like, you added a gay character in your video game, and now you're sexually harassing people? Like, that's not at all adding to the discourse. That's just stupid memes. I really don't give a shit about that. What's important is to call people out on similar events, right? The Blitzchung situation to today. They had all the opportunity to prepare for another PR calamity, and they chose not to. They chose to double down, they chose to hide, and they chose to kind of utilize this like really insidious way to like, again, I don't like being like reading into things like this, because at the end of the day, as I described with the cancer example, like if it's good, it's good, even if the intentions are bad. But like this really puts a sour taste in my mouth for like for example, the diversity get together or meetings at BlizzCon a year or so ago, right? Like this puts a really shitty like image of that, right? When generally those places are pretty nice, those places are pretty cool, like cool, awesome. Who cares, right? Like if you really care about like a diversity inclusion meeting or whatever, like maybe go outside. As someone who doesn't go outside, maybe go outside. Like who cares? But it really puts a shitty taste in my mouth, like a shitty poo-poo diarrhea taste in my mouth when you do that, and then in your first response to a civil rights lawsuit aimed at your company, you're like, well, look at this. We look at all this diversity things we had. Right? Coincidentally, as the investigation started, it's almost like they maliciously planned to make this so they can call back to it when inevitably shit hits the fan. And yet they still failed. And perhaps the most unbelievable part of this, right, is them being like, these kinds of investigations is why businesses are leaving California. There's so many generic responses to that, right? Like, why can't I rape people? Why can't I rape people? I'm just gonna leave I'm gonna leave California. I'm gonna take my business with me. Like all these like obvious responses of like, dude, like maybe just don't be a piece of human garbage. Maybe just don't be like a cunt. Maybe don't be someone who drives people to suicide. You wouldn't have to leave the state if that's the case, right? That's the obvious response. But the more insidious reaction to this would be addressing the fact that this is a threat. Like, this is an explicit threat. It is not implicit like many of the things we've discussed in this video. It is explicit. Hey, you guys need to back off or we're leaving the state. And you know what? The state doesn't want that. Believe it or not. Right? Blizzard's enormous. Enormous. Right? They bring a lot of profit to the state of California. Generally, people don't like when big businesses leave their state. Not a good thing because the state, not as profitable. And I say profitable, but I use that term in a good way, right? The state needs money. The state needs money for a variety of reasons, right? Build some highways. I don't know. Fucking pave some roads, man. Especially in California, right? Where everyone's driving everywhere and it's traffic 24/7. So, like, probably not a great thing. And this is such a spiteful response. Like, it's almost baffling to me, right? If I'm called on some shit, if someone calls me out on some shit, my go-to response when I know I'm in the wrong is probably not going to be like, I'm just never going to talk to you again now. Like, that's just, it strikes me as so tone deaf, because generally PR statements are overtly focused on looking as amicable as humanly possible, right? Like, oh, we understand and we grieve with, none of that. It's just none of that. It's like a direct attack. And they were just like, oh yeah, we create, fair and rewarding compensation packages and policies that reflect our culture and business. And we strive to pay all employees fairly for equal or substantial similar work. Like, all of this shit is just completely irrelevant. Like, the biggest part of this lawsuit isn't just payment. It's other forms of discrimination. I just wanted to add this, right, as like a epilogue to my previous video, just to make my position a bit more clear on this. Yeah, man, fuck Blizzard, I guess. Shit. I think we as a community need to be engaging more now with a harsher reality than just dealing with a worse game. I think we as a community should be engaging with a harsher reality than that. Just for a little bit. As I said in my previous video, it's not fun. And it's not a fun thing to talk about at all. It makes me sick. It makes me sick. Because a lot of the people that are being indicted are the people that just a couple days ago, if someone asked me what I thought of them, I'm like, oh yeah, they're awesome. Oh yeah, they seem like great people. They're great designers. Like, last thing I want to say is that if you're working in these kinds of environments in a tech corp, there are a lot of sources you can go to discreetly, privately, anonymously to report some of the shit that you've been dealing with. If you've been dealing with shit, I'll try to post some links in the description for that. Because even me, a tiny content creator, like tiny, right? Tiny, minuscule, fucking micro-peen content creator. Even I've been getting messages from people with these kinds of experiences being like, yeah, I've dealt with this firsthand. Not at Blizzard, but in other companies tangential to Blizzard. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.